to feature Shweta Srinivasan in our special episode on burnout and self-love. Shweta is a mental health professional and co-founder of the Mind Clan. Welcome, Shweta.
Hi, Mandeep. Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on completing 1 year of WiP.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to you for getting married.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, it's been a good journey in the last 1 year. So I just wanted to have you throw some light on burnout. I was reading so much about this. From longer hours to increased demands at home, the COVID-19 pandemic introduced new stressors to every domain of life. So as the world heads into its third year of the pandemic, these stressors have become persistent and indefinite and heightening everyone's risk of burnout. How would you explain the difference between stress and burnout?
Thank you for that context as well on burnout, Mandeep. I think that's so important to acknowledge during the changing times in the pandemic. And I think stress and burnout are often used interchangeably as terms when they're actually very completely different experiences. So stress essentially is when you feel emotional and physical tension in the body, right? So when your external tasks or circumstances are pushing you out of your comfort level. They are demanding more out of your internal reserves, essentially. And that's very normal. I think we all go through stress on a day-to-day basis, and it's in fact healthy if it is managed well. Mm-hmm. But burnout, on the other hand, is when this stress goes on for a long period of time without getting addressed and without us taking care of ourselves through that stress. So burnout essentially is a consequence of unmanaged stress. And I think, even machines at the end of the day require a recharge of batteries, and we are human beings after all. So for some reason, we still don't take enough time to recharge our own batteries, when essentially that needs to be done in order to prevent burnout and take care of our stress.
Actually, Shweta, so much is being written about stress and burnout, and this whole bit about the emotional, mental, physical exhaustion and this prolonged and repeated stress. In fact, one of the articles by the American Psychological Association of the 2021 Work and Wellbeing Survey said that 3 in 5 employees actually reported impacts of work-related stress. And I think overall, they've seen heightened rates of burnout first in 2020 after the 2019 COVID pandemic started, and now in 2022. What would you say for normal people? How would they know the markers or signs of burnout? And is it age specific? That's my question.
I think that's a great question. To respond to, say, just the markers of burnout first, I think burnout essentially has 3 important markers, and all of them signify some sort of a shutdown that's happening of your nervous system, right? So the first marker is emotional exhaustion, which comes from, it's fatigue that comes from caring too much for too long. And this is especially also, quite common among women who experience something called compassion fatigue, when we are constantly caring for not only, our tasks at work, but also at home and, in other areas of our life. And we don't really give ourselves enough credit for the kind of work that we do. When that kind of care work goes unrecognized and unappreciated for so long, it really results in this fatigue that how much do I pay attention to the number of things that are on my plate? And especially during the pandemic, like you said, I think all of us have been experiencing a sense of decision fatigue. Like, do I choose this over this? Do I choose to go out to buy my groceries, or should I stay home and keep myself safe? Something as simple as that. And it takes us so much mental energy to make that decision that over time, it just results in this exhaustion. And that's specifically seen during the pandemic as well. The second marker I would say is something called depersonalization, which is when you reach a point, lack of empathy. Like you've been caring for so long that now there's this indifference that's come over you, and you kind of feel apathetic towards things, and that's never a good place to be in. I feel like that's such a red flag when you notice that You feel like you don't care about what's happening in the world, you don't care about what's happening in your life. So that's definitely a red flag to watch out for. And finally, I would say there is a decreased sense of accomplishment when you're burning out. So you feel like no matter what achievements you're sort of successful at work or even at home, you feel like there's no point to those achievements, or you feel like there is a sense of futility that surrounds those achievements. So that is also something that could be a really important marker of burnout. And as far as age specific concerns, I think these markers can show up in different situations based on your age. Like, say, if you are a mom, then maybe, these experiences of fatigue or decreased sense of accomplishment may be very connected to the specific area of maybe with your children and how you are feeling about yourself as a mom, versus say if you are working and in that area with your employer, then maybe you're feeling like even though you're meeting your targets, you're doing the best you can, you still feel like it's not enough, and you're constantly kind of criticizing yourself, feeling so fatigued at the end of the day. So I think depending on the situation, these markers can show up in different ways.
Shweta, I had actually children in mind because
Hmm.
one of the conversations, one of the mothers said that, believe it or not, you might think that the schools have not, have been closed and shut, but
Yeah.
a lot of the children, and suddenly the studies have come, exams after the schools have reopened. So the
Mhm.
children are also actually experiencing that. So that's why I wanted to ask you, is it possible that at that age, younger age as well, they experience some kind of stress? I mean, stress obviously they have,
Mm.
burnout.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's so important to note because I think none of us was prepared for the kind of stress that this pandemic has brought our way, right? And especially children, like you rightly said, that entire shift towards online schooling and online classes, and not having access to your coping mechanisms like your friends, or just stepping out and hanging out with each other, having that safe space is no longer accessible for children.
Yeah.
So it definitely places more pressure on their plate. And when those boundaries between home and school and work, all of that is so blurred, I think it does take a toll on the child's mental health and burnout as well.
So I know you have explained a whole lot of them. So do you suggest then when people notice this lack of interest or motivation,
Mm.
energy, lack of effort at work, or other cognitive weariness and emotional exertion, or physical exertion for that matter, do you think this should actually be a red flag that the person should go and see a mental health professional, or do you think they can do something to prevent this? So my next question is going to come from that what is it, how important is self-care actually in the context of burnout?
Oh, it is so important. I think, I mean, I'm sure that the women listening to this talk must have heard already of so many strategies and tips and tricks for self care. But I feel like the one thing I want to remind people is that it's not just about this, setting the spa appointment or the yoga class or the meditation and all of the other things that to be self care. But what's important is that these things will work only if you give yourself permission to do self care.
Exactly.
I think that's something that I want the listeners also to remind themselves of, that unless and until you allow yourself to take back your time and your energy and do something for yourself, the strategies are aplomb. Like, there are so many sort of tricks and tips out there to take care of yourself. But first and foremost, notice if am I allowing myself to take that time, and am I letting myself know that it's okay, I can take out this 20 minutes and step out for a walk in the middle of my day. It's okay if I just listen to my favorite song and dance it out at the end of a stressful day. That next task can wait,
Yeah.
for another 10 minutes. The world is not going to end. So I think when it comes to self care, it definitely can help as a response to burnout. Definitely, it can help as a prevention to burnout. But I think we do need to start building that mindset of allowing ourselves that permission to take care of ourselves.
That's a big one, I think, when it comes to women specifically. Now, a lot of corporates across, and I'm talking to a lot of HR people, and they're all saying that, employee well-being, specifically mental well-being, is there on the agenda. In fact, the midst of the pandemic, when the Citigroup CEO, Jane Fraser, announced several initiatives, and she said this whole phenomena of pandemic fatigue, because not many CEOs were talking at that point in time. And she said that let's ban the video calls on Friday, urging employees to, set boundaries on work regular hours, and also encouraging them to take vacations, and kind of asking that firm-wide holiday, let's do a city reset day. And she called it that the relentless of the pandemic work day has taken a toll on the well-being. So it's not sustainable, and we should reset some of our working practices. But a lot of organizations are announcing it. But it's again something, as the business is picking it up, it's something that HR people need to do. But they're not talking about creating a psychologically safe place for people to be able to approach someone and to be able to talk about it. So I think I want your comment on this. So what do you think, that is it easy for people to just talk about things when trust and psychological safety is not really established? How does it
Oh,
happen?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think it's such a great question, Mandeep, because, this reminds me of some of the trainings that we were doing at the Mindland for a few corporate organizations last year, where they approached us asking for how do we build psychological safety at the workplace, because they were noticing something really similar as a problem, where on the policy level, it existed that people can take as many days off as they need. Let's change our work practices based on the pandemic, etc. But on the implementation level, it wasn't really happening. And employees were still not feeling comfortable or safe enough to approach their managers and say that today I need to take it a little slower because I'm not feeling too okay. And people still grappled with the idea of, will this affect my performance review? Will this, affect the way I'm seen in the organization as, being less productive or less efficient, etc. So all of these thought processes are so ingrained that it is so important for, on a culture level, for managers to also lead by example. I think for managers to also, when they say that these facilities exist, or you can take a day off, I wonder what it would be like if the manager themselves just said that, today I'm feeling not so good, so I'm going to take a day off. And I think that that kind of role modeling or leading by example can be one of those first steps to build that safety in the organization. Because as an employee, if I see my manager can do it and things are okay, things have not fallen apart, then I feel like, okay, maybe I can do it too. And I will receive that support. So definitely psychological safety.
Point. Exactly. And I think actually I don't, envy the managers, because building psychological safety when you're working, virtually or remotely, it's not easy. It's a hybrid working in most organizations now. So we are telling organizations that means that, you need to take a proactive approach. So what do we need to tell the organization, that how do they prioritize and prevent burnout, and how can they take reaction against burnout? What do we tell them?
So I think a couple of things, which all of them involve mindset changes, I would say, at the end of the day. I think firstly, learning how to ask for support and ask for help is so important. I think even on an organizational level, to let employees know that if you are stuck with something or if you need help in any area, it's okay to open up and ask for help. It doesn't mean that you are weak. It doesn't mean that that you don't know your job, or that you're dumb or stupid, all of these labels, right, that really stop us. So I think learning to delegate tasks and asking for support if something feels difficult is really an important mindset to adapt, and to know that you don't have to do everything alone, that there is support. The second thing I would say is to let go of perfection. I think sometimes we also pursue this idea of what's the perfect kind of employee that I can be? What's the perfect kind of mom or wife or partner that I can be? And I think there's this constant sort of thought process of what if I were a better employee, or what if I were a better mom? So I think that relentless need to be perfect just takes up so much energy, and it really affects our mental health. So sometimes we just need to kind of surrender to this idea that we cannot control everything, that there is no perfect way to be, and it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to be imperfect, and that, you know, even if things fall apart, you can still pick up the pieces and move on from there. There is always a tomorrow, that there's always a next step that you can go to, right? And I think the third and last mindset change, which is sort of related to this, I would say, is watching how you talk to yourself. I think we, you know, we I think if we were to pay attention to how we talk to ourselves, we would really hear a lot of shouting and, you know, labeling, and just to sort of take a moment and see, is this how I would talk to somebody that I love, or is this how I would talk to someone that I care about? And to slowly start to shift that, because even if you are imperfect as a person, even if you've made mistakes, even if you do not have the perfect choices in front of you, your worth as a human being is never up for debate. Like, for you to know that you are always enough and always worthy as a person, and to never demean yourself, no matter how tough life is getting or how tough certain choices seem. So I think watching how you talk to yourself and shifting towards a kinder approach is so important.
Oh my God, this is a very, very important one, because I think most of us may want to really hold ourselves to higher standards every time, and I think we're very hard on ourselves, and that self-talk of telling that this is okay is important. But it's very nice to see that through all these last 2 years, this danger of letting the guard down, the minute we do that, and then there are the states, lift the restrictions and then they reimpose it again when another surge of COVID cases happen. And now, although everyone is saying that we should learn to live with this as an endemic, and but employers and business leaders, they cannot let the guard down, because when it comes to mental health, that's all I'm trying to say. Because stress and anxiety for what people have, employees and other people have felt over these last 2 years, is not going to disappear
Mm.
magically. So in some cases it might worsen, because suddenly when the work has started now, that's all I'm thinking. So I think to build the recovery, we need to make sure that well-being, physically and mental health, remains an urgent priority. And I think some wonderful, wonderful points shared by Shweta here. Shweta Srinivasan, guys, our mental health professional at WiP. We are tied up with the Mind Clan, who she's a co-founder of, and we continue to keep seeking her, wise counsel and advice from time to time. Thank you so much, Shweta, for making the time, and you've been there in our journey of the first 1 year, and I hope to continue to see you more.
Absolutely, Mandeep. Thank you so, so much for this talk. I really enjoyed it. And my association with WiP has been so fruitful and so encouraging. And I'm looking forward to the years to come.
Love you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye. Take care.